What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more acid. And I don't know, for many, many years, this is something I would call hard acid trance, and I think fundamentally it is still most accurate to label it that way. But in recent times, there are people, including those who made some of this and who are still around producing and DJing, who call some of the hard acid trance of the 90s acid techno, which again, I totally am fine with. I think there's a lot of tracks from back in that era that are sort of hybrids. They have elements of acid trance and acid techno in them, which is, for someone of my taste, a particularly nice combination. Because again, I will always love 90s acid trance, and I've been listening to acid techno from my earliest days of hearing rave music and going to techno parties. So yes, this is definitely one that is in that hybrid vein, even if maybe some people now would just call it acid techno. Nevertheless, I want to give a big shout out to Karsten, a good friend of mine who had followed my old YouTube channel and the DJ mixes I had put on there for multiple years before I began doing reactions, and then a couple months after that had to create this new YouTube channel. So yes, he's one of the longest running folks who've been involved in my YouTube activities, again, going way back to when I had that old channel and I only put up, a few mixes a year. And he recently reached out to me on Facebook and he mentioned, there's a list of tracks that I thought it would be cool to do reactions for, and there was a couple of them in there, like the Chris Liberator remix of Set Fire that I have actually already reacted to, but a lot of them I haven't. And in a few cases, including this one, I was shocked. It was like, wait, I never reacted to Geezer and Choci's Silver Box. So yes, I'm amazed at that. This is one of my longtime favorites. I've used it in many a mix over the years, and by and large, that has been in hard acid trance mixes of a throwback style. This is a track from 1998. It's on Choci's VCF, or Voltage Controlled Frequencies label. And this is as hard and wild as acid trance came. It is just absolutely marauding. It is wicked and dark. It's relentless, and it's on, as I said, the very tip of the hard acid trance spectrum. Again, acid trance going back to the 90s. There's the kind of slower, trippy style of acid trance. There's the somewhat faster and like melodic style of acid trance. There's hard acid trance that, again, still kind of has melody, and I'm trying to think of how to describe this style. It's sort of like mid-90s in style, and then there's this style of hard acid trance, which is more of a like second half of the 90s, late 90s style, where it really was kind of pushing the envelope in terms of how wicked it could get. So people know I'm just a massive fan of the Geezer, probably, or at least one of my very favorite producers, all genres considered. And his collaborations with Choci back in the day are just legendary. They're epic. And they have come back together. Choci's been making some tunes. He's been involved in some tunes in recent times after a pretty sizable hiatus in the world of acid. I think he was making like house and some other things for a while, but either way, this is one of the all-time classics. I wrote a review on Discogs to that effect now, I think more than 10 years ago. It was like 2012, something like that. So it's one that I talked about back in the day. It's one that I talked about in the middle period, and one that I'm still talking about now. So with no further ado, and again, once again, shout out to Karsten for requesting this one, and I will continue to go through the list that he provided in the coming weeks and months. But yes, this is Geezer and DJ Choci from Choci's VCF label. I don't remember the cat number. It doesn't say it clearly here, or at least not in the print that is not insanely small. I do know it's from 1998. So here we go. This is Geezer and DJ Choci. The track is Silver Box, which I'm sure most of you know, but just in case not, is a reference to the Roland TB-303, the original acid machine, and which has been emulated in a lot of hardware clones and software clones. But yes, this is with the original bad boy, so to speak. This is Geezer and DJ Choci, Silver Box, 1998 on VCF. And hold on to your butts. the layers. Absolute banger, and it will be 100 years from now and beyond. So again, it's like traveling through a very dangerous territory that there's also this dark allure to it, and also, you're not sure if you're going to get to the other side, but you're definitely going to try. It just has that feel of like, this is dangerous, this is wicked, but something is drawing me to it, is sort of the vibe that this one gives off. Again, this is like pushing the edge of what hard acid trance was. I do still put it in that category, in part because number one, VCF marketed itself. The whole idea behind the label is that it was acid trance, but in a hard sort of having it way. And on the back of a lot of VCF record sleeves, not this one, which I have in like a generic black sleeve, but on a lot of the like formal VCF sleeves, they put like the only acid trance record shop in London and so on. Like it was about hard acid trance. Now again, in recent times, I think some folks would call this acid techno, which is fine, and I don't necessarily disagree, but I think it has characteristics that were not identical to what, say, Stay Up Forever or, like Rootmaster and so on were doing at the same time, even though a lot of the people involved are like the same people. Again, Geezer, Choci, they're both on Stay Up Forever and so on, and the communities of hard acid trance and acid techno at the time, and right up into this day, I would say, there is a lot of overlap. Even if like hard acid trance, or even maybe acid trance more generally, is not as much of a like active genre as it was back then, whereas acid techno is as alive as ever now in 2026, which I think is fantastic. And again, the fact that vinyl is still the core of that movement, certainly if you're talking, Stay It Forever and its related labels, I think is fantastic. But the point is, again, I would call this hard acid trance, and this is very much a style I was into back then. To be fair, a lot of the VCF and Choci's tunes catalog I didn't get until later years with Discogs. I had a few. I had like, a couple Choci's tunes, a couple VCF, I think one or two VCRs, which voltage controlled remixes, which is like the sister label or the sub label of VCF. But yes, it wasn't until the Discogs days when I really started to fill up my collection of the back catalog of Choci's tunes, VCF and VCR. And indeed, shout out to Discogs, because, early days, Discogs was all about electronic music. It was all about like dance music, trance, techno, and so on. It's now like everything. You can find any kind of music you can think of on Discogs, and there's, all sorts of like different versions and master releases and so on. So it's great the way Discogs has become what it's become. But back when I first started using it, which I think my first account was '04, and then I think I made my current account to this, the one I continue to this day, Mr. Tom Servo, in 2006, so I've had it for like 20 years. Before that, like, I was going to record shops regularly into like 2001, 2002. Then there was like a couple year period where I did start to look online, like Hard to Find Records, Satellite Records were a couple of sites that I would look at. But again, once I found Discogs, it was like, oh, this is kind of like an encyclopedia mixed with a marketplace. This is awesome. And again, the rest, as they say, is history. But this is one that I had at least going back that long. I want to say like '05, '06 or something like that. Maybe even it was one of the handful that I had back in the original days when I was going to record shops. But again, record shops, they were awesome. They were fantastic. I loved that period. But you never really knew what you were going to get, and it also depended on what that particular record stock or record store had in stock. So even if they did get records from a certain label, you may or may not find one of the releases from that label that you might know about and be looking for. And even that was difficult, right? The idea you hear a track at a party, something like this. There is, I think, there's like a vocal in there. It's not even clear exactly what it's saying. I don't know if it's saying Silverbox. I don't think so. But yeah, you'd hear a track and it's like, oh, the one that goes, it's like, someone at a record shop wouldn't be able to do much with that. So you really just kind of had to like seek things out. And even sometimes if a record had a sample, it might be called something else, or there might be 3 or 4 different tracks that had that same name. And so, yeah, it was always difficult to find something you had heard. Nowadays, we have the benefit of YouTube and Discogs and, sort of like resources that allow us to search online and like, oh wait, yes, that's the track that I've been looking for all these years. Nevertheless, this is an all-time classic. It's just wicked and hard from step one to the very end. And I do love the way the bass line kind of creeps in. Like it's sort of, it's very quiet at first. It gets louder and louder. I do love the simple kind of, popping hi-hat, and then that double time ride cymbal which comes in and out at various points. I love the layered acid. There's also that like hard synth that just, that is a like crucial element which gives it like even more of a gritty kind of metallic sound. So yes, I'd use this track in a number of mixes, and as I sometimes do when I do reactions to trance and techno. If you're interested in hearing what this sounds like in a mix, let me just see. I know one for sure is going to be Cuffs and Coffins, or Cuffs or Coffins, because that one, yeah, Cuffs or Coffins is one. Very Bad Things, I don't know about Very Bad Things. Forget About It, Down to Business. I'm trying to see, yeah, some of the, because Silverbox is a phrase that shows up in some different things. 100% though, you can hear this in my Cuffs or Coffins mix, which I know is here on YouTube. And it's, that whole mix is full of stuff in this style. A lot of VCF tracks, I think some Choci's Tunes tracks, maybe a couple VCR tracks, but it's really like a VCF heavy mix, and I know it has this one. And the samples come from True Detective, and they're, kind of really gritty and, intense, so I think they fit the mix well. In any case, thank you again to Karsten for the suggestion. Let me know what you think, and I will see you next time. Peace.